What I would say to someone then is that it's time to really take a look at your strategy as a whole and realize that what once worked for you is no longer going to work for you moving forward.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Second Society podcast. Today's episode is an incredible one. We sit down with Kelly and Taylor from the Level Up podcast, and they are here to break off myths and lies about the luxury market that we've been fed our entire lives. So if you are currently in the mainstream market and you want to dive in, photograph, and film luxury weddings, then today's podcast is for you. So get ready, hang tight, and let's dive in. Today I am with Taylor and Kelly from the Level Up podcast. How are we doing, ladies?
We're good. Thanks for having us on. We're excited to be here.
Glad you guys are here. You are definitely taking this industry by storm. I feel like you are one of those people that just kind of came through, and within a year, you're disrupting the industry, leveling up the industry, no pun intended, and just helping so many people out. And today, I kind of just wanted to talk through with you guys, what does it look like to be a lead or second shooter, to be helping out somebody in the luxury market? I know personally that there's a difference between mainstream weddings and how you present yourself, and then how you step into a luxury, middle luxury, ultra luxury. You're going to carry something different, right? And you're going to put your trust in someone that's in a different level than you would in a normal wedding. And so we're here to kind of dive into that with you guys. And first, before we do that, I would love to kind of just hear your backgrounds real quick, maybe like a little 2-minute segment on just who you are, where you're from, and then kind of how you got into the industry.
Yeah, I'll go first real quick. So Kelly here, and I'm one half of 618 Studios. I run 618 with my husband, Paul. We've been a husband and wife team together. This is our 14th season filming weddings. And pretty much like 1 year after we started in 2010, we both went full time. We met in high school. We grew up in San Diego. Now we are in Orange County. We've been there for many, many years. College kind of brought us up there. And I went to school for film, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And Paul and I, because we met in high school, we also got married as babies. We were like 21, 22 when we got married. And we loved the experience of planning our wedding and working alongside our vendors. And I just kind of felt like I kind of wanted to start shooting weddings. And so we dove right in, started our business before I was graduated from college, and just built it up from starting at free. And then our second wedding was $350, and our third wedding was $500, and now upwards of $25,000 is how we have risen within the market. And it's been a really, really fun journey. We shoot all over. And then Taylor, about a year ago, brought me alongside on the Level Up Co. And she has just such a really different journey than me, which is really awesome. And we've had really different strategies on like how we've gone about getting to where we are. It took me a little bit longer, but Taylor has been able to scale really, really quickly. So Taylor, I'll pitch it over to you.
Thanks. I'm Taylor. I started shooting weddings in 2017. And right around COVID times, when all of the weddings were canceled, I chose to fill my time with education. And that's when the luxury market was something that I learned more about. And I quickly just kind of dove into all things learning how to brand myself and market myself, and how to curate a portfolio that spoke to luxury clients. And then within 2 years, I was booking 5-figure weddings. And this year, I'm averaging between 15 and 18,000. My primary markets are between Napa and Tahoe, which are local to me. Like, that's an hour and a half drive. So I'm very fortunate with where I live, at being a destination for people all over the world to get married. I'm definitely one of the people who is a business owner who happens to have skills with the camera, whereas Kelly is the opposite. She's like an artist who's like also a business owner. So we kind of complement each other in that way. And I started Level Up as a like an educational brand, as a podcast. in January of 2020, so before the world shut down. And it's taken a lot of different forms. But when I brought Kelly on, we decided to really focus on the luxury space, because I feel like that's something that so many filmmakers specifically are interested in, but there's not a ton of education out there for it. So we kind of filled that, and we've had the absolute pleasure of guiding dozens of filmmakers specifically into growing their businesses to where they went from shooting like $3,000 weddings to over $10,000 weddings. And that makes all of the work of Level Up completely worth it to us. Like, we love helping people in that way. So we're really excited.
I mean, it's so cool. I mean, your storyteller is just the fact that basically starting in 2020, and then within a couple of years, you're already hitting like mid luxury levels. That's insane. And that's so inspiring for so many people. It's not like two ladies that have been in it for 20 years and it takes 20 years to get here, but we'll teach you education and you'll get there faster. It's like, well, no, it took you 20 years. It's probably going to take me 20 years. And it's like, no, you did it. Like, that's super cool.
Yeah,
And
it can
so,
be
like,
really fast. Like, that's what people don't realize, is like it doesn't have to take a decade or two. It
yeah,
can, if you start implementing changes today, like, you can really see results within a year. So it's very, very tangible.
dang. Yeah. Okay. Sign me up. I'm in. Done. Like, I've been in it for 9 years. So I'm wondering, like, what would have happened if Level Up was around and existed during when I first started. You know what I mean? Like, where could I have been now if I had this education and being able to dive into that? So would love to kind of pick your guys' brains. I don't know who wants to talk. It's kind of hard. It's like,
But I feel
Taylor.
like we have kind of like now we do this, because of the podcast and everything. We've sort of figured out our flow on who's going to go next.
Okay.
But yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and I love that Taylor said that, like, it doesn't have to take a long time. And even though this is my 14th season, so I've been in it for so long, like, there was not really much education out there when I first started. And now there's lots of different options. And I think that that's so great, because different filmmakers or photographers, based on their journey that they're in, are going to find the education that's best suited for them in their goals at the time. And so we're really excited to bring something totally different than what we really see in especially to filmmakers. And now we're getting so much more interest from photographers that want to be a part of this framework that we've built out. And so that's really, really cool and exciting to be able to serve that community as well. But when you first start out, it's really, really all about the gear, right? You have to like figure out how to use this new camera that you just bought, or you need to figure out which lenses are the best choices for you, and kind of how to execute a day in a very, like, I don't know, a streamlined process, or just like a very mainstream way, right? But then as you start to want to speak to higher end clientele and shoot weddings that are, beyond maybe what you're charging, and get really into that 5-figure range, it just takes a whole it takes a lot of undoing. That's what Taylor and I
Yeah.
find a lot, is that, like, a lot of students that come into the program, it's a lot of undoing of what they've been taught, because the luxury market works completely differently than the mainstream market. And it's not something to be scared of. That's one of the big things too, is we want to lift the veil that this luxury market isn't as terrifying as people think it to be. And I felt that same way myself. I really held myself back in like 2016 and 17, thinking that the clients were more demanding, or the days were harder, or whatever it might be. And I found, as I finally nestled my way into that sector of the market, that was totally untrue. So I think it's really cool to bring awareness to, filmmakers and photographers as to how they can speak to luxury clients and what that's going to look like, and then how to get there.
That's so cool. I definitely want to unpack that, but like, it's so interesting. Like, I've done, you know, several luxury weddings. I think they're called luxury, but where it was absolutely terrible. And like, my mindset immediately was like, oh, I don't want to do luxury ever again. You know what I mean? They're all like that, right? And that's just not the case. Like, the more you do it, you're always gonna have some bad weddings. Like, and that's true for even the smaller weddings, right? Like, so many people come up to me when I'm like, oh, I'm a wedding, filmmaker, and they're like, oh, do you deal with any bridezillas? And I'm like, No, not really. Like, just it just doesn't happen in the market that we're in. You know what I mean? Like, they're mostly like super cool and become friends with you. So it's like just a mindset shift that you have to get around.
Yeah, I get that question a lot. And I'm always like, oh, yeah, no, not really. Or like, they're like, oh, what's the craziest thing you've seen at a wedding? And I'm like, I never have good stories. Like they just flow so nicely. And like the clients are so great. And the wedding days flow so seamlessly. So I never really have the good stories that people are asking for.
That's the best story of all, right? That there is no stories. It's like
Yep.
you just have a great business model at that point. Like, you figured it out.
One thing too is like there's really a lot less to stumble upon in a luxury event because the caliber of vendors are all top quality. Like they're all like highly skilled, highly professional. So you're not running into like any divas in their own work, right? But then also they're bringing on specialists. So there's a lighting team, there's like an audio team, there's teams for literally everything. So we're in the mainstream market, like, you know, we're hauling in our lights, we're hauling in all this, like we're coordinating makeup and like making sure that's on time. Like that's really not something that happens in the luxury space, which is like so great because we're able to then focus solely on our craft, which is what we were hired to do in the first place, right? So it just
Mm.
kind of makes for a more relaxing day where you're not running around like a chicken with your head cut off, like being responsible for all of these things that are shouldn't really be in the scope of like what you have to be executing on a day, but you kind of fill those spots because they need to be filled in those like more mainstream sectors of the market. So that's also like very freeing and I feel like creates less opportunity for horror stories.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
no, that makes sense. Like, would you say that it's like even better, like on the getting ready side of things, like where it's just like you have more room to work with, you have more creative space to kind of like take creative reign around these like certain areas of the wedding day?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, like physical space for sure, because the client's budgets, like you're not cramming 12 bridesmaids into like a single hotel room. I remember those days of like, how
Oh,
are all of you fitting in here? And it's like a dark room and it's just terrible. And then we just had our first wedding of the year last weekend and they had the presidential suite. And I mean, that thing was bigger than my house. That's like, it had to be like 3,000 plus square feet. And so, and there's like a enormous balcony that we can bring this bridal party out that's 11 people. And I feel like there's part of you that just kind of feels like you have these like hacks that when you're in the mainstream market, you can kind of like look ahead to photographers and filmmakers being like, well, that would be so nice if I had a 3,000 square foot getting ready room and an enormous balcony to pull a huge bridal party out. And I mean, it is really, really nice. And that's another just like added little benefit. And like, you don't have to babysit the hair and makeup team to make sure that they're running on time. A lot of times you have a bridal assistant there that's on the wedding planner's team that's really making sure that the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. And being able to like make sure everything stays on time. It doesn't fall on us anymore, which is so, so freeing because for years and years I did that and it was exhausting.
yeah. You're kind of just acting as like a secondary coordinator sometimes, you know what I mean? Because the coordinator's already busy with the reception and you're walking into the getting ready and nothing's ready and the girls are running late and you know you have to get them to the ceremony site or whatever it is. Like, those days, oh my gosh, where it's just like
Oh
12
my
girls
gosh.
in there and you know you only have 25 minutes to get all your shots knocked out and get everybody on a bus, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I mean, that's why, like Taylor and I say, the mainstream market really burns people out. I think that when people have only along the common burnout phase and period for photographers and filmmakers is 5 years because
Mm,
the mainstream market with shooting with these budgets that are just low and there's just not a lot of like support for you, it burns you out. And so I can see why the burnout period is within that 5 year range, 5 year mark. And so that's the other thing that Taylor and I like our huge thing in Level Up is to open people's eyes to like your business has so much more growth ahead. And let's, instead of spinning your wheels trying to figure out how to make it happen and ultimately maybe like closing up and quitting weddings, like we don't want that. Like people get
Mm,
into weddings because they love weddings. Like they love it. They love to photograph them, they love to film them, they love to tell stories, and we want to be able to see that through for filmmakers and photographers and be able to take their business to its fullest potential. And so that's really really what our heart is behind Level Up.
that's amazing. Like, let's pretend that we're talking to an ideal person right now, to where they've been in the wedding industry for 5 6 years, and they're making $5,000 to $6,000 per wedding, right? Or even 7 or 8, right? And they want
Mm-hmm.
to get into that luxury market, but they feel like they're kind of capped out, and they're not really able to get out of the coordinators that they're working with, and the coordinators, are staying in that like mid market
Yeah.
area.
No, I was gonna say definitely like in that 5 to 8 range is definitely more of that like mid market range for sure. And I would say that like what I would say to someone then is that it's time to really take a look at your strategy as a whole and realize that what once worked for you leading up to that is no longer going to work for you moving forward, and being able to like turn a new leaf and get out of that market. And so like that's kind of why like Paul and I, Taylor and I, we feel like we serve filmmakers and photographers really well that have been in business maybe 3 years, but probably 5 years, that are just really ready to take it to the next level. Because I think there's a lot of education out there that's super great for like year 0 to year 3, 4. And then from
Mhm.
there, like it's a totally different conversation, a way different shift in branding, marketing, client experience, etiquette. Those are all things that like when Taylor and I built this course, we were like, I mean, I guess we have to do an editing and filmmaking module, but really at the core, like this is a business course. Like it's not
Mhm.
gear heavy. There's enough of that out there. There's not
Yeah.
enough of how to like really run a business, gain relationships from wedding planners, and speak to high end clients. Taylor, would you agree?
Yeah, I totally agree. And also, like, I wouldn't necessarily say that like the technical side and the gears where Kelly and my strengths are. And so, speaking to our strengths, which is the branding and learning how to market yourself, and even down to the etiquette of how you show up on the wedding day, how you're communicating with these clients and these wedding planners, like, there's really a lot that goes into it where we find that as we talk about these topics, like, we are finding that people generally kind of fly by the seat of their pants. Like the way they're like crafting emails, we're like, no, 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 no. Like there's so many questions on like when to follow up, when not to follow up, like what's appropriate. And like we really like to guide people through executing that in a way that is industry standard for the luxury space so that you don't stand out like a sore thumb when you don't want to. We only
Mm.
like to stand out in good ways. um, so yeah, it's really, there's a lot that goes into it that I think just takes a lot of refinement and trial and error. And we're trying to remove like the trial and error part from people so they don't have to go through those stumbling blocks.
Yeah, if you could give me like five, traits or 5 things that people need to fix to get out of that like mainstream market and get into luxury, and then maybe we can just pick apart one today, and kind of dive a little bit deeper on that. Do you have like 3 to 5 things that you're like, this is what a lot of people aren't doing that they need to focus on?
Yeah. I would say like number one, like the core of everything is really understanding where you're trying to go in your business, like what's the end goal, and then pairing that with like who your ideal client is, because
Mm,
so much is going to have like a ripple effect from that one decision. That's going to dictate all of your branding, the work that you choose to showcase, and the work that you choose to not publish, and where you're showing up in the marketplace. So, like, if you don't know what your goal is and who your ideal client is, like you're not really gonna see any changes in any significant way. Um,
so
Kelly,
good.
do you want to take number two?
Yeah, I think number two would be like your overall presence on a wedding day, and attire is a huge one. We
Mhm.
really have to do some tough love on a lot of the students that come into our program and just how to show up in a way that's appropriate, especially for these luxury events. And Taylor and I are huge too on like you always say that you dress for the job that you want, right? So even if you are shooting weddings in that middle market and maybe not every guest is wearing a full suit, you know, with a coat and everything, like we are telling every single one of our like male filmmakers like you're gonna wear a suit, like that's it is the way that it has to be. Yeah, and like that's exactly like so Paul and I actually, because we're a husband and wife team, we don't always utilize second shooters, but we had a third shooter come on and assist us this past weekend at our first wedding because we're getting now to the level where there is just so much to shoot that a third is really becoming more standard for us,
Hmm.
especially just like running audio, running drone, and helping with like the logistics of moving throughout the day so that we can remain client facing more so. And so that was like the very first thing that I had to like point out was like, hey, we're so excited to have you. This is a black tie wedding. You need to wear a black suit. And so like that's something that like I think I don't know what it is, but there's this like hiccup with filmmakers and photographers where it's like, well, I can't do my job if I'm wearing a suit. And I will say that my husband Paul fought that battle for like with me. I think it was probably like year probably like 6 that I'm like, I think we need to like upgrade like how we're showing up to weddings and like show up better, like more professional. And he was like, well, I'm not wearing a suit. I can't do my job. I sweat too much. I can't do this. I have to carry around all this gear. I have to do this. And I'm like, Paul. So for like 2 years, he fought me on it. And finally, we had this wedding at the Beverly Hills Hotel. And I remember there was just like, I think it was our first wedding of 2018. And I said, I need you to wear a suit. Like, I need you to go invest in a suit, find something stretchy. And there's the fabrics are so great now. Like, find something that's going to work. And he was like, like, still rolling his eyes, fine, fine, fine. And then when I was editing their ceremony film after the fact, he caught a glimpse of himself, like in the background when I was like in the office. And he was like, dang, I look good. And I'm like,
Oh, good.
yeah, you do look good. And that like all changed for him. He's like, I have to wear a suit every single time. But it's like, you kind of have to have that like aha moment or like, and Taylor and I really want to like also keep people from like embarrassing themselves too. Like, what is industry standard, like Taylor said, especially for the luxury space. And in that space, like everybody is wearing like a suit.
Mm.
And for the ladies, like it's a dress, it's loafers, or it's a slight heel, or you know, these are black tie events. So I think for us to be able to blend in more seamlessly and do our job really effectively, us dressing the part's huge, and that's huge for like our second shooters. I know that Taylor just says the same thing to her second shooters. It's like you have to wear a suit. Um, yeah,
Mhm.
And then, like, you guys mostly do multi-day weddings. Would you say that you're kind of doing a suit throughout those 3 days, or do you kind of like talk to either the coordinator or the couple to find out like what the theme is for either a rehearsal dinner or welcome party or anything like that?
yeah, that's a big one too. Is like some of the times there's like some themes on this, and we did a wedding in Aspen last year, and like I kind of wish we all would have asked earlier because there was a certain attire that we were all going to show up in, and then we had heard from the planner earlier on in the day that like the guests were all going to be wearing like, you know, like a Western type of theme. Like it wasn't going to be like all buttoned up, black tie. Like it was, they were in Aspen for the welcome party. They were going like hats, and girls were wearing like cool Western skirts. And it was just, it was way more of like a vibe. And so we like immediately kind of had to like figure out something else to wear so that we'd blend in a little bit more. And
Yep.
that's what's so fun too about the luxury space is that it's not so cookie cutter. And I think that's another thing that doesn't like helps save people from burnout is that it's
Mm.
all different. Everything, the design is so inspiring. Um, all these multi-day stuff, you know, the one that we did last weekend was a 3-day event. So Paul was like strategic about which suit. He has like a navy suit, he has a black suit, and then he kind of has like a gray suit that he'll pair with like navy pants for a more casualish day. So yeah, it all kind of like, it's all things that we love to like tell our students so that they can show up appropriately and be really dressing the part and really wowing wedding planners. Because for wedding planners, to be honest, like they're probably not going to sit through your film, or browse through like your entire gallery of thousands of images, but they're going to remember how you presented yourself on the wedding day, and for them that's more important, honestly, than any of it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that's a big wake up call. Oh, wait, the coordinators aren't going to watch my film? No. No, they're not. They're doing, 60 to 100 weddings a year. They're not watching everybody's film. They're like incredibly busy. And so it's all about that one moment that you have with them, that like one connection that makes them remember you. That's going to take you, it's not going to be your work at the end of the day, unfortunately. Unfortunately, as artists, I
Yeah.
think we all want that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But to your point, it has so much more to do than the gear that you're using, or you as an artist and the way you're able to craft a film. It has a lot to do with your business, your etiquette, the way you approach coordinators and all that. So on top of that, what would be kind of number 3 that we can dive into?
I would say having a curated Instagram. So we see
Mm,
a lot of people who feel pressure, whether it be internally or perceived to be externally, to post every wedding or to make every bride happy by feeling seen on their Instagram feed. And that's like one thing that we have to really rewire in people's brains is not feeling that pressure. We all have events that we're super proud of, and then we all have events that we kind of took on just to like pay the bills and everything in between. It's a spectrum, right?
yeah.
And our goal for our students and what's going to really push you in the industry is really only selecting that top like 20 to 30% of events to showcase. That's going to like paint your brand in the best possible light, and make sure you're attracting more of the kinds of events and weddings and wedding planners that you want to continue working with and less of the ones you don't. So that also goes for like Instagram stories too, or resharing things you've been tagged in, like really treating social media like the marketing platform that it is for us as entrepreneurs instead of as a social media app that it was for us back in college.
Mm.
So that's one like really important distinction to make, and something that can be hard for people, but once they get it, then it like the results come pretty quickly from that.
I think too is people really underestimate the value of just the networking and overall relationships. Once you've kind of made your way out of the budget market, you will start to work with probably more what you would call like coordinators, which might be like day of or month of coordination. Maybe you'll be working with like a
Mm.
partial planner. But once you kind of work your way up, you'll be working mainly with full service planners. And that's a really big shift because you kind of go from when you used to only be communicating with the client directly, now you're kind of communicating more with the planner, and I think that's really scary for a lot of people, but it really doesn't have to be,
Yeah.
because people forget that planners, they're like, well, I need to know my clients, or I need to be able to talk to my clients, or I can only create a really good film if I've talked to my clients. And I think that's why there's so much beauty in really identifying your ideal client and having that bleed through in your branding, in your portfolio, and everything, so that you really are just speaking to that ideal client, and it's going to be a win every single time. And the planners are going to know who to sell for you for their client. So like if a client comes in
Mm.
and they're like, I'm looking for someone who's like has similar like vibes as me, um I don't know, I want someone that's like kind of fly on the wall, maybe kind of like cool and calm and collected, or like they know their clients like in and inside and out, so they know who's going to be a really good fit for them on like a personal level and on like an artist level. And so that's where like I think a lot of people get scared is they say like, well then I'm just going to get like all these couples that I don't even know and it's like out of my control. And it's like, well no, if you have really fine-tuned your branding and messaging, the copy on your website, it goes all into it. It's like all things that Taylor and I talk about within our course and our mastermind program, to help filmmakers and photographers make these correct choices so that when planners are pitching and selling on your behalf and you may not talk to them until the wedding day, it's okay because that client has already like trusted you because of the branding that they've been like immersed in and that you're speaking directly to them. And so it was, I feel like for me specifically, it did feel scary when I was making that jump, but it was because I hadn't yet refined my branding and messaging and ideal client. And I didn't really have what Taylor was saying, where she had the goals. Like she didn't have the goal and the trajectory and like vision for the business. So it was a little bit of a scary time because I'm like, I don't know who's on my calendar. I don't know what this wedding's going to look like. It was a little bit of like a mess. But,
Mm,
and then when it was like, when I finally kind of, it all clicked for me on like what I needed to do. Now, like it's a home run every single time. And although I don't get to talk to my clients always before the wedding day, it's up to them if they want to meet with us. We're always happy to do consultations, but it's led by the client and what they want in their pre-planning process. And I don't know, it's just not something to be scared of. And so that's why Taylor and I are so happy to kind of like also lift the veil on that and show people like, here's how it doesn't need to be scary. And this is going to save you a lot of years of heartache and a lot of years of stress if you do all of these things to be able to attract the clients that you really want.
mm. And so is there basically, tell me like what your process is. Like if you are going through the coordinator the entire time, do you
Yeah.
send it to the coordinator that like, hey, we just want to let you know that we would love to hop on a call with them if they're wanting to? Is that kind of what you
Yeah.
said?
We
Okay.
always say like it's always offered. Like Taylor and I collectively say like it's always offered, but it's never required.
Okay.
I think like a lot of times photographers and filmmakers like hold on to this, and I think it's like an artist thing, as us as artists that are like we kind of need to like hold the reins a little bit tighter, and we need to be able to like have a consultation with the client, or we need to be able to do that. And that's part of like the undoing of our program too, is to kind of show them like, how you're going to seamlessly flow in and be really successful in the luxury market. And so it's all kind of like fitting into the world of like how high end clientele think. They think so much differently than brides and grooms who are more on a budget, that live a certain type of lifestyle versus like this luxury clientele that lives a completely different lifestyle. So it's like unpacking of all those things and giving them like a whole new fresh vision on why it makes sense. And it's so cool to see the light bulb moments on students to say like, oh my gosh, this does make a lot of sense. Like, wow, okay, I never thought of it that way. Okay, okay, cool. I don't know.
Mm.
It's just really fun.
I want you to break the mindset or the lie that we're fed that like if I don't talk to my client before the wedding day, then I'm going to show up and I'm going to not connect with them and it's just going to be awkward and I'm not going to be able to get like the story piece out of their wedding film. Like what does that look like for you when you go in and you've never met them before? Like what's kind of your tactical approach?
Well, I feel like there's so much pre-production that needs to happen in that mainstream market because that's kind of all you have to work with as a filmmaker and as a photographer too. Like really all you have is their story. So you have to lean so heavily on that to create a film that they love and that paints the picture of the day. But as
Mm,
you scale into those premium and into the luxury market, like really the event itself becomes the story that you are telling in your film. Like that is the story. Like you don't need to know what they did 10 years ago when they met like beforehand because that's kind of irrelevant to the day and to the event itself.
mm,
But we do like Kelly and I both do edit in like heavily narration like style. Like we do a lot of dialogue and you're going to learn everything you need to know about them through their vows and through the toasts. Like it's all there for you. on site. Like, so we don't like to put that burden on our clients to feel like they need to like add one more meeting to their calendar, or do one more thing, fill out one more lengthy questionnaire, because it's really unnecessary. And if they don't want to, it's kind of like putting them in like a bad place from a client experience perspective. So it's like kind of a muscle that you have to learn to work to like not lean so heavily on all this information you're receiving beforehand. Like, it's something that you become more comfortable with over time. But as you do, and as you scale and as you grow, you find that it's so much easier to create a really amazing film without ever having even known the couple's names sometimes before you show up on the wedding day, honestly.
I would
Wow.
say Taylor,
So.
like you. I mean, the way, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because Paul and I are a husband and wife team or what, but um, Taylor speaks to a lot less of her clients beforehand. I would say Paul and I do like maybe like 30% of our clients they're still opting for a consultation with us
Mm.
beforehand. So like the wedding this past weekend, we did meet with them beforehand and we kind of knew a little bit about them, but there's nothing in that consultation. I didn't even send them a questionnaire. There was really nothing that they could give me that because I had that consultation, I could shoot their wedding 100 times better. Like it would
Mm.
have been the same result either way if we had a consultation with them or not. They just kind of really want to know, like, how are we seamlessly going to fit in with the wedding day? They want to know, like, how easy we are to work with, what our presence is going to be like, how we're going to just kind of execute some things. Very minor questions. I just want to make sure that we're going to be like a really solid team member on their team.
Yeah, not to mention that like most of you guys I think are doing multi-day weddings anyway. So you have a day or two to meet them in
Yes.
person, and you're
Yes.
connecting with them like on a more chill level to where it's not like, "Oh, wedding day, let's go straight to getting ready." It's like, "No, it's a welcome party." You know what I mean? We're having fun. It's a little bit laid back. Maybe you're doing an event and just like hanging out and getting to know them within those couple of hours the day before or 2 days before, whatever it is, right? And so
Yeah.
Absolutely.
that kind of takes place of the consultation. And I think we can all agree that we'd much rather be filming an epic event the day beforehand rather than doing a consultation, right?
Yeah. And
Uh,
making money while we're filming that, right?
yeah.
Instead of a free consultation that's just like taking up time on our calendar.
Am
Yeah.
I selling the course yet? No.
And honestly, like, as an artist, they're so much more fun to film, if I'm being totally honest. Like,
Yep.
there's so many pretty things, so many experiential moments, there's performances, there's immersive events. You know what I mean? Like, there's so much to capture. And I feel like Kelly had talked about the burnout rate too. And I think that that comes from the lack of support, but also like kind of the mundane nature of like the budget market. But as you scale and the events become more intricate and design focused and experiential, they're so fun to where you can stay invigorated and not feel like, oh, I have another wedding this weekend. Like, it's like, oh, yay, I have another wedding this weekend. Like, let's go.
Yeah.
And that's like a great way to feel as a business owner, like excited about your job instead of like, okay, let's just go do another one.
Yep. Just
So,
another one knocking it out like a number, right?
mm-hmm.
And it's kind of just like another lie to where I think there's two sides, right? Like there's one where you're really going to dive into the couple's story and really get to know them on a personal level and probably pull out like these gems that you otherwise wouldn't be able to do. And so if that's your gig, go for it. But I think even in the luxury market, it's like you can still tell an incredible story and still get all these beautiful pieces about their childhood and about their family and like what the guests are like, but inside of a luxury experience as well. And so it's not like
Yeah.
you're missing 90% of the story if you go into luxury, right? Like I think that's kind of the
No.
lie that a lot of people are fed is that now it's just a job and I'm filming, faceless people and they don't have character, they don't have personalities, and that's not just necessarily true.
No,
Yeah,
that's
that's
not true.
right. Yeah.
If any of this is like resonating with you who may be listening, Kelly and I are actually putting on a free 3-day workshop that we would love to invite you to. Jimmy has been given the link to sign up, and we're just really excited. Hundreds of filmmakers and photographers have already signed up, and you'll get 3 free days of coaching with Kelly and myself to give you the framework that you need in order to begin your journey towards whether you choose the premium market, where maybe you want to aim for that, like between $8,000 to $10,000, or the luxury market and be shooting 5-figure weddings. It's something that we love doing. We do this workshop very infrequently. So we hope that if you're listening, you sign up and hop on this opportunity because it's a lot of fun and there's always so many aha moments that our students are having. So we're really excited.
What if I can't make the workshop? I'm working all 3 days, but I really want to make sure that I have access to it. Is that possible?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have replays available in this private Facebook group that we've created just for the workshop for a week. So the workshop is on March 12th, 13th, and 14th, and replays will be available until March 20th. So you can, work and then binge them all on the weekends or catch up whenever you need to, because you have a week to watch them. So yeah, we know that a lot of people haven't yet maybe even jumped into this full time, or they have kids or other obligations during the day. So we really want to make sure it's accessible to anyone who wants to participate.
Awesome. You guys are the best. Thank you, Kelly and Taylor, for joining me for a whole hour and just diving in to the luxury market.
Thanks for having us. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you guys so much for watching this week's episode. If any part of this podcast was impactful to you, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel, as well as share it on social media. Make sure to tag us at secondsociety.io. Also, if you're a wedding photographer or videographer and you're not part of Second Society yet, make sure to join the family and the community of high-level lead and second shooters found throughout the entire world. Until next time, guys, stay blessed, and I hope you have an incredible week.